At the center of the Nexus of worlds stood a figure that had watched the universe grow old. The eternal Sentinel rose 300 meters into the sky, a giant made of living stone and captured starlight. Its body was dark, like the space between stars, but veins of soft golden light ran through its form like rivers of fire, frozen in time. Its eyes were the most beautiful and terrifying thing anyone had ever seen. They were pools of swirling nebulae, purple and blue and pink, containing the light of 1,000 dying stars. The Sentinel had stood in that exact spot since before history began. No one knew who built it or where it came from. The oldest races in the galaxy had stories about it, passed down through countless generations. Some said it was a god, others said it was a weapon, a few believed it was a door to another universe. But everyone agreed on one thing: the Sentinel had never moved. Not once, not ever. Around its massive feet, the great civilizations of the galaxy had built their embassies. The Nexus of Worlds was the meeting place for all intelligent species. Here, treaties were signed, wars were ended, new members were welcomed into the family of spacefaring peoples. And at the heart of it all stood the Sentinel, silent and still, watching everything and saying nothing. The plaza around the Sentinel was made of white stone that never got dirty. Fountains of liquid light danced at its edges. Beings of every shape and size walked through it every day. Some had fur, some had scales, some had no bodies at all and existed only as floating clouds of thought. They all looked up at the Sentinel as they passed. Most felt a chill run through them, no matter how many times they had seen it before. Scientists had studied the Sentinel for thousands of years. Their instruments told them strange things. The Sentinel was not a statue. It was alive. Somewhere deep inside that mountain of stone, a heart was beating. It beat once every 100 years, but it was beating. The Sentinel breathed too, taking one breath every 500 years. It was alive, but it lived on a time scale that made normal life look like the flash of a firefly. Every species that joined the Galactic Concord made a pilgrimage to the Sentinel. It was tradition. It was expected. And every species tried to make the Sentinel respond. The Valkyrie were tall beings with silver skin and crests of feathers on their heads. They were masters of sound and music. 300 years ago, they had built a great chamber around the Sentinel's feet. For 50 years, they played music for it. They created harmonies that could make stars vibrate. They composed songs that took 10 years to perform. The Sentinel did not respond. The Mindsworn were a hive mind, millions of individuals sharing one consciousness. They had focused all their mental power on the Sentinel for an entire decade. They projected their thoughts at it, trying to make contact with whatever mind lived inside that stone body. The Sentinel did not respond. The architects were beings made of living crystal. They thought in mathematics and spoke in equations. They spent 4 generations creating a mathematical proof of their worthiness. The proof was so complex that it took up an entire moon. They presented it to the Sentinel with great ceremony. The Sentinel did not respond. Over time, the attempts became less frequent. The failures piled up like snow in winter. Eventually, the great races of the galaxy accepted what seemed obvious. The Sentinel would not respond. Perhaps it could not respond. Perhaps it was simply too different, too alien, too far beyond normal life to notice creatures as small as them. Children on school trips would point at it and ask questions. Tour guides would recite the same facts they had recited 1,000,000 times before. Scholars wrote papers about it, but fewer and fewer each year. The mystery remained, but the hope of solving it had faded. The Sentinel watched all of this. It watched empires rise and fall. It watched species evolve and go extinct. It watched wars that burned across entire star systems. It watched peace treaties that lasted 10,000 years. It watched new species discover fire, and old species transcend physical form and become beings of pure energy. And through all of it, the Sentinel never moved. Its eyes tracked the slow dance of galaxies across the sky. Its ancient mind contemplated things that no other being could understand. But on the outside, it was still, always still. The plaza below it filled with life every day. Merchants sold souvenirs. Politicians made speeches. Lovers met under its shadow, believing that its eternal presence would bless their unions. Priests performed rituals. Tourists took pictures. Life went on, busy and loud and full of meaning. The Sentinel watched. The Sentinel waited. The Sentinel was alone. No one thought about what that might mean. No one considered what it might feel like to stand in one place for billions of years, watching everything but being part of nothing. To the galaxy, the Sentinel was a thing, a landmark, a mystery to be solved or ignored. No one thought to ask if it was okay. Then the humans arrived. Humanity was new to space. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel a few decades ago. Compared to the ancient races of the galaxy, they were babies, taking their first steps. Their technology was adequate, but nothing special. Their culture was interesting, but not unique. Their history was short, and full of the same wars and mistakes that every young species made. The Galactic Concord welcomed them politely. Another new member, another flag to add to the collection. The humans were given a small embassy near the edge of the Nexus, far from the important buildings where real decisions were made. They were expected to watch and learn and stay quiet until they had earned their place. Most of the galaxy barely noticed their arrival. Humanity was just another face in an endless crowd. They had nothing special to offer, nothing that would make them stand out. At least, that was what everyone thought. But the universe has a strange sense of humor. Sometimes the smallest stone can start an avalanche. Sometimes the youngest voice can wake the oldest sleeper. Sometimes the most ordinary question can change everything. And sometimes a being that has been alone for longer than stars have burned just needs someone to notice it is there. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin was not having a good day. She had slept only 4 hours the night before. The coffee on the space station tasted like dirty water. Her translator device kept making strange buzzing sounds, and now she was lost. The tour group had moved on to the treaty archives without her. She had stopped to look at something, and when she turned around, everyone was gone. The Nexus of Worlds was massive, and the corridors all looked the same to human eyes. She had been wandering for 20 minutes before she found herself in the Sentinel Plaza. Shen stood at the edge of the plaza and looked up. The eternal Sentinel filled the sky above her. She had seen pictures of it, of course. Everyone had. But pictures did not prepare you for the real thing. It was like standing at the base of a mountain that was also somehow alive. The golden light in its veins pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat you could see. Its nebula eyes swirled with colors that had no names in any human language. She felt small. Everyone felt small in front of the Sentinel. That was normal. But Chen also felt something else, something she could not quite name. It took her a moment to realize what it was. She felt sad. The Sentinel looked lonely. She knew that was a strange thing to think. How could something so vast and ancient and powerful look lonely? But Chen had spent her whole career reading people. That was her job. She was a diplomat because she could look at someone and understand what they were feeling, even if they did not say it, even if they were hiding it, even if they did not know it themselves. And right now, looking up at the eternal Sentinel, she saw loneliness. It was in the way it stood, somehow, in the endless patience of its pose, in the way its eyes watched everything, but connected with nothing. A voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a Velkari approaching. It was tall and elegant, with silver skin that reflected the light like a mirror. Its crest of feathers was deep blue, a sign of high status. "You are the human ambassador," the Valkyrie said. It was not a question. "You have become separated from your tour group. I can guide you to the treaty archives if you wish." Chen nodded, but did not move. Her eyes went back to the Sentinel. "It does not respond," the Valkyrie said. There was a gentle patience in its voice, the kind adults use with children who do not understand something obvious. "Many have tried. Greater civilizations than yours have devoted centuries to understanding it. The Sentinel simply is. It exists, it watches, but it does not interact." "Has anyone ever just talked to it?" Chen asked. The Valkyrie's crest fluttered. That was their version of a smile, Chen knew from her briefings. "Countless beings have addressed the Sentinel. Prayers have been recited, songs have been sung, mathematical proofs have been presented, psychic projections have been attempted. Nothing has worked." "No, I mean actually talk to it," Chen said, "like a person. Not prayers or songs or math, just talking." The Valkyrie paused. Its crest stopped moving. "I do not understand the distinction you are making." Chen understood then. The Valkyrie, like all the other races, saw the Sentinel as a puzzle, a mystery to be solved, a lock to be opened. They approached it with offerings and rituals and great works of art and science. They came to it wanting something, wanting answers, wanting meaning, wanting proof that their civilization was worthy of its attention. No one had ever just come to check on it. Chen thought about her grandmother back on Earth. She had lived alone for 10 years after her husband died. People visited her, but they always wanted something. They wanted her advice. They wanted her to babysit their children. No one ever just came to ask how she was doing. No one just wanted to sit with her and talk. Her grandmother had been lonely too. Chen recognized the look. "Thank you for your offer," Chen said to the Valkyrie. "But I think I will stay here for a while." The Valkyrie's crest fluttered again, but this time with confusion. "As you wish. The archives will remain open for another 6 hours if you change your mind." It walked away, leaving Chen alone in the plaza. Well, not quite alone. There were other beings around, tourists and priests and officials going about their business. But none of them were paying attention to her. She was just another visitor, staring up at the landmark. Chen took a deep breath. She felt a little silly. What was she going to do? Have a conversation with a 300-meter-tall stone giant that had not moved in billions of years? The greatest minds in the galaxy had failed to get a response from it. What made her think she could do any better? But then she remembered something her grandmother used to say. Sometimes people do not need you to fix their problems. Sometimes they just need to know that someone sees them. Someone cares. Someone notices that they exist. Chen walked closer to the Sentinel. She stood right at the base of its enormous foot. Up close, she could see patterns in the stone that looked almost like writing. Ancient marks in a language that had been forgotten before the first galaxies formed. She tilted her head back and looked up at its face, so far above her that she had to squint to see it clearly. "Hey," she said. Her voice sounded small in the vast plaza. "You good?" The words hung in the air. Nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. Chen felt the weight of all the failed attempts that had come before her. All the songs and prayers and proofs that had meant nothing to the ancient being above her. She was about to turn away, to go find her tour group and forget this silly moment of sentiment, when she felt something. The ground beneath her feet trembled. It was small at first, just a vibration, like a heavy vehicle passing somewhere nearby. But it grew stronger. The white stones of the plaza began to shake. The fountains of liquid light flickered and danced. Chen looked up at the Sentinel. Its eyes were changing. The swirling nebulae that had moved slowly for billions of years were now spinning faster, brighter. The colors intensified, until they burned like twin suns. The golden veins in the Sentinel's body pulsed with new energy, faster than before, like a heart that had suddenly remembered how to beat. And then, for the first time in the history of the universe, the Eternal Sentinel moved. Its head turned. The sound was like nothing Chen had ever heard, stone grinding against stone, but also something deeper, something that resonated in her bones and in her mind and in the space between atoms. It was the sound of time itself being bent. Across the Nexus, alarms began to scream. Chen could hear distant shouts, the thunder of running feet, the howl of emergency sirens. The Sentinel was moving. The impossible was happening. The universe would never be the same. But Chen did not run. She stood there, looking up, as the Sentinel's massive head finished turning, and its burning eyes looked down. The Sentinel's eyes were like standing at the edge of creation. Chen felt herself falling into them, even though her feet never left the ground. She saw colors that human eyes were not built to see. She felt heat that should have burned her, but did not. She was small, so impossibly small, like a single grain of sand, looking up at the ocean. But she did not look away. The Sentinel's voice did not come through the air. It did not enter through her ears. It simply appeared in her mind, like a memory she had always had, but was only now remembering. The voice was old, older than the stars, older than time. It carried the weight of eons, the loneliness of ages, the weariness of a being that had been awake for longer than universes had existed. "No," the Sentinel said. "I am not good." Chen's translator device sparked and died. It could not process what was happening. Nothing could process what was happening. But Chen understood anyway. The Sentinel was speaking directly to her mind, bypassing all the barriers of language and species and biology. Around her, the plaza had erupted into chaos. Beings were running in every direction. Security forces were mobilizing. Scientists were grabbing equipment and racing toward the Sentinel. Diplomats were shouting into communication devices. The entire Nexus of worlds was going into emergency mode. But between Chen and the Sentinel, there was silence. "I am sorry to hear that," Chen said. Her voice was calm, even though her heart was beating faster than it ever had before. "Do you want to talk about it?" The Sentinel was quiet for a long moment. Its massive form shifted slightly, stone grinding against stone with a sound like distant thunder. Chen realized it was the first time anyone had seen the Sentinel move in recorded history. Every eye in the galaxy would soon be watching. Scholars would spend centuries analyzing this moment. But right now, in this moment, it was just her and the Sentinel. "No one has ever asked," the Sentinel said. There was something in its voice that Chen had not expected. Surprise. And underneath the surprise, a crack in the ancient armor. A hint of emotion that had been buried for so long that the Sentinel itself had forgotten it was there. "Asked what?" Chen said. "If you are okay?" "If I am anything," the Sentinel said. "To them, I am a monument, a mystery, a thing to be studied or worshipped or ignored. For billions of years, beings have come to me. They have sung to me. They have prayed to me. They have presented their greatest achievements to me. But they always came wanting something. They wanted answers. They wanted power. They wanted proof of their worth." The Sentinel paused. Its eyes dimmed slightly, the burning nebulae settling into a softer glow. "No one ever came just to see me, to notice me, to ask how I was doing." Chen felt tears forming in her eyes. She understood now. The greatest minds in the galaxy had tried everything to make the Sentinel respond. Everything except the one thing actually needed. "That sounds really lonely," Chen said. The Sentinel made a sound that vibrated through the entire plaza. It took Chen a moment to realize what it was. The Sentinel was laughing. It was a sad laugh, heavy with ages of solitude. but it was still a laugh. "You have a talent for understatement," the Sentinel said. "Your species is young, your minds are small, your lives are brief, and yet you see what the ancient ones could not." "Maybe that is why," Chen said. "We are used to feeling small. We know what it is like to be overlooked, to be alone in a universe that does not seem to notice you." The chaos around them was growing. Warships were being scrambled. Emergency councils were being convened. The Velkari diplomat Chen had spoken with earlier was standing at the edge of the plaza, watching with an expression of complete shock. The universe was holding its breath. But the Sentinel only had eyes for Chen. "You asked me to talk about it," the Sentinel said. "Very well. I will tell you what I am. I will tell you why I am here. I will tell you what I have never told anyone, because no one ever cared enough to ask." Chen sat down on the white stones of the plaza. It seemed like the right thing to do. If someone was going to share their story, you should sit and listen properly. Behind her, she could hear gasps and shouts. The human ambassador was sitting down in front of the awakened god. It was either the bravest thing anyone had ever seen, or the stupidest. Chen did not care either way. "I am listening," she said. The Sentinel began to speak. Its voice filled Chen's mind with images and feelings and memories that were not her own. She saw the birth of the universe, the first explosion of light in the endless dark. She saw the formation of galaxies, stars coming together like dust in a cosmic wind. She saw the first life, tiny creatures swimming in warm seas on a billion different worlds. And she saw the Sentinel being created. It was not built by any species she recognized. The beings who made it existed before physical form had meaning. They were concepts as much as creatures, patterns of energy and thought that danced at the edge of reality. They knew something that terrified them. Something was coming. Something so vast and terrible that even they, with all their power, could not stop it. So they created a guardian, a watcher, a sentinel that would stand at the crossroads of all realities and wait for the threat to arrive. "I do not know what I am waiting for," the Sentinel said. "I was not told. Perhaps the threat was defeated before I was created. Perhaps it will never come. Perhaps it is already here, and I have not recognized it." "So you just wait," Chen said. "Forever, not knowing." "Yes. And you have been waiting alone, all this time, with no one to talk to. The beings who created me did not think I would need company. They thought purpose would be enough. They thought that having a mission would fill the void. They were wrong." Chen wiped her eyes. The tears were flowing freely now. She was not embarrassed. Some things deserve tears. "I am so sorry," she said. "That sounds terrible." "It is," the Sentinel agreed. "But it is less terrible now." "Why?" "Because you are here. Because you asked. Because for the first time in longer than your universe has existed, someone looked at me and saw not a mystery to be solved, but a being that might need a friend." The Sentinel's hand began to move. It was the slowest motion Chen had ever seen, like watching a glacier flow. A finger, as big as a building, reached down toward her. Chen did not run. The finger touched the plaza beside her, gentle as a falling leaf despite its size. Where it touched, the stone glowed and changed. It reshaped itself into a small seat, carved with patterns of stars and galaxies. "I cannot leave my post," the Sentinel said. "I must watch. I must wait. This is my purpose, and I accept it. But I am tired of being alone while I wait." Chen stood and looked at the seat. It was beautiful. It was also clearly meant for her. "Are you asking me to keep you company?" she said. "I am asking you to be my friend," the Sentinel said. "If that is not too much to ask of a human." Chen smiled and sat down in the chair carved by a being older than time. "It is not too much at all," she said. The conversation lasted 3 days. Chen did not plan for it to last that long. She had expected to talk for an hour, maybe two, and then return to her duties. But the Sentinel had been silent for so long. It had so much to say. And Chen found that she did not want to leave. Food and water were brought to her by confused embassy staff. They did not understand what was happening. No one did. The greatest event in galactic history was unfolding, and at the center of it was a tired human diplomat sitting in a stone chair, talking to a giant about feelings. The Galactic Concord did not know how to react. At first they tried to take control of the situation. Important officials demanded to speak with the Sentinel. Military commanders wanted to know if it was a threat. Scientists wanted to run tests. Priests wanted to perform rituals. The Sentinel ignored all of them. It would only talk to Chen. This made some people very angry. The Velkari had spent 300 years trying to communicate with the Sentinel. The Mindsworn had dedicated a decade of their collective consciousness to the effort. And now a human, a member of a species that had only been in space for a few decades, was having a casual conversation with it? Some called it unfair. Some called it an insult. Some demanded that Chen be removed and replaced with a more worthy representative. But they could not make her leave. The Sentinel would not let them. "Why me?" Chen asked on the second day. "There are beings here far older and wiser than me. Why will you only talk to me?" "Because you were the first to ask the right question," the Sentinel said. "And because wisdom is not the same as kindness. The ancient races have great wisdom. They have learned many things. But somewhere along the way, they forgot something important." "What did they forget?" "That everyone needs to be seen. Everyone needs to be heard. Everyone needs someone to notice that they exist and care that they are okay. This is true for the smallest creature and the largest. It is true for beings that live for a single day and beings that live for billions of years. It is true for me." Chen nodded slowly. "On Earth we have a saying, no one is so important that they do not need love. No one is so unimportant that they cannot give it." The Sentinel was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer. "That is beautiful. Your species is very young. How did you learn such things?" "The hard way," Chen said. "We spent most of our history hurting each other. Wars, cruelty, injustice. We are not proud of it, but we learned from it. Slowly. We learned that the things we have in common are more important than our differences. We learned that kindness is not weakness. We learned that asking someone if they are okay is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do." "You have not yet overcome your nature," the Sentinel observed. "I have watched your species. You still fight. You still hurt each other. You still fail to live up to your own ideals." "That is true," Chen admitted. "We are not perfect. We never will be. But we keep trying, and maybe that is what matters." The Sentinel considered this. Around them, the plaza was filled with beings watching and waiting. News drones from 1,000 worlds floated in the air, broadcasting every moment to trillions of viewers. The awakening of the Eternal Sentinel was the biggest story in galactic history. But to Chen, it was just a conversation with a lonely friend. On the third day, the Sentinel began to share more of its memories. It showed Chen things that made her laugh and things that made her cry. It showed her the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. It showed her civilizations that had risen to greatness and fallen to dust while the Sentinel watched. "Do you ever wish you could have joined them?" Chen asked, "instead of just watching?" "Sometimes," the Sentinel admitted. "I see beings live and love and struggle and die, and I wonder what it would be like to have a life with a beginning and an end. To have relationships that matter because they are temporary. To experience things for the first time instead of seeing everything through the eyes of eternity." "But you cannot leave your post." "No, I was made for this purpose. If I abandon it, everything my creator sacrificed would be for nothing. and there is always the chance that the threat is real, that one day something will come that only I can stop. I must be here when that happens. Chen thought about this for a long time. She thought about duty and sacrifice, and the weight of responsibility. She thought about her own life, the choices she had made, the things she had given up to serve her people. It is a hard thing, she finally said, to give up your own happiness for something larger than yourself. I respect it, even if I wish you did not have to. Thank you, the Sentinel said. That means more than you know. As the third day ended, Chen knew she could not stay any longer. Her body was tired, her mind was full, and she had duties of her own that needed attention. The human embassy was in chaos. Her government was demanding reports. The entire galaxy was waiting to hear what she had learned. She stood up from her stone chair and stretched her aching muscles. I have to go, she said, but I do not want this to be the end. It doesn't have to be, the Sentinel said. I have stood here for billions of years, and I will stand here for billions more. You may come back whenever you wish. The Valkyrie and the Mindsworn, and all the rest? Will you talk to them now? The Sentinel's eyes flickered with something that might have been amusement. Perhaps. In time. But they will need to learn to ask the right questions first. They will need to come to me not wanting something from me, but simply wanting to know me. It may take them a while to understand the difference. Chen laughed. You might be waiting a long time. I am used to waiting, the Sentinel said, but now at least I will not be waiting alone. It raised one massive hand in a gesture that looked almost like a wave. Goodbye, Chen Weilin. Thank you for seeing me. Goodbye, Chen said. Same time next week? The Sentinel's laughter echoed across the Nexus of Worlds, the first laughter heard from it in the history of the universe. It was warm and genuine, and full of something that had been missing for far too long. Hope. Same time next week, the Sentinel agreed. Shen walked away from the plaza, with the eyes of the galaxy upon her. She did not feel like a hero. She did not feel like she had done anything special. She had just seen someone who was lonely, and asked if they were okay. It was the simplest thing in the universe. And sometimes, the simplest things are the most powerful of all. 10 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had expected. The awakening of the Eternal Sentinel had shaken the foundations of everything. Old certainties were questioned. Ancient assumptions were thrown away, and at the center of it all, humanity found itself in a new position. Chen Weilin came back every week, just as she had promised. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. The Sentinel told her stories of things it had witnessed, and she told it about her life, her family, her hopes and fears. They became friends in the truest sense of the word. But it was not just Chen who visited anymore. Word spread about what had happened, about how a simple question had reached a being that centuries of ritual and ceremony could not touch. The story traveled from world to world, translated into 1 million languages, debated in 1 billion forums. What did it mean? What could others learn from it? Some did not understand. They thought there must be a secret, a technique, a formula. They came to the Sentinel with carefully prepared questions designed to sound casual. They pretended to care when they really just wanted power or answers. The Sentinel saw through them all and remained silent. But others began to understand. A young Valkyrie came to the plaza one day. She was not an important diplomat or a great scholar. She was a student, barely past childhood by Valkyrie standards. She stood before the Sentinel, with her crest flat against her head in nervousness. I am told you only respond to those who truly care, she said, her voice shaking. I do not know if I care in the right way. I do not know if my caring is big enough for a being like you. But I heard you were lonely for a very long time, and that made me sad. So I came to say that I am sorry you were lonely. And I hope you are less lonely now." The Sentinel looked down at her. Its eyes glowed with soft light. "Thank you," it said. "I am." The young Valkyrie burst into tears of joy. She was the second person the Sentinel had spoken to in 10 years. She would not be the last. Slowly, one by one, others followed. A mind-sworn individual who had separated from the collective because she wanted to feel things for herself. An architect who had always wondered if there was more to existence than equations. A being made of pure energy who was afraid of fading away and wanted someone to remember that it had existed. They came not with offerings or rituals, but with honesty. They came not to take, but to give. They came to share their fears and hopes and loneliness with someone who understood. The Sentinel listened to all of them. The Nexus of Worlds changed too. The plaza around the Sentinel was no longer a place of formal pilgrimage. It became something more like a garden, a gathering place where beings came to sit and think and talk. Not just to the Sentinel, but to each other. The practice of asking, "Are you okay?" spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. It was not a revolution. It was something quieter. A slow shift in how beings treated each other. A growing understanding that everyone, no matter how powerful or ancient or different, needed to be seen. Humanity's reputation changed as well. They were no longer the young newcomers, tolerated but not respected. They were known as the species that had reached the unreachable. The species that had seen loneliness in a god and responded with kindness. Some still did not understand. Some thought it was a trick or a fluke. But many looked at humans differently now. Chen became one of the most respected diplomats in the galaxy, not because of her brilliance or cunning, but because of her kindness. She showed them that power was not just about strength or knowledge. Sometimes power was simply caring enough to ask a question that no one else thought to ask. 20 years after that first conversation, a human child wandered into the Sentinel Plaza. She was 7 years old, the daughter of an embassy worker. She had gotten separated from her parents and was too young to be scared. She looked up at the Sentinel with wide eyes, full of wonder. "Hello," she said. "You are very big. Do you want to play?" The plaza fell silent. Beings from 100 worlds watched with held breath. Playing with the Eternal Sentinel? The idea was absurd. The Sentinel was an ancient being with cosmic responsibilities. It did not play games with children. But the Sentinel looked down at the little girl, and its eyes, those pools of nebulae that had seen the birth and death of galaxies, sparkled with something that looked very much like joy. "Yes," the Sentinel said, "I would like that very much." For the next hour, the oldest being in the universe and a 7-year-old human girl played a game. It was a simple game involving pebbles and lines drawn in the dust. The Sentinel moved its enormous fingers with infinite care, pushing pebbles across the plaza while the girl laughed and clapped. Chen watched from her stone chair with tears in her eyes. Beside her stood the Valkyrie diplomat who had first approached her all those years ago. He was weeping too. "I do not understand," he said. "We tried for so long, we offered so much, and all it took was asking if it was okay." "That was not all it took," Chen said. "You have to mean it. You have to actually care about the answer. You have to see the being in front of you, not the mystery or the monument or the opportunity. You have to see them as someone who might need a friend." The Valkyrie's crest trembled. "We thought we were so advanced. But we had forgotten something that a young species still remembered." "You did not forget," Chen said gently. "You just needed to be reminded. We all need to be reminded sometimes." The game ended, and the little girl's parents came rushing to collect her, full of apologies. But the Sentinel spoke before they could take her away. "Thank you," it said to the child. "That was the most fun I have had in a very long time." The girl beamed. "Can we play again tomorrow?" Yes, the Sentinel said. I would like that. As the family walked away, the Sentinel turned its gaze to Chen. Even after 20 years, she still felt the power of that attention, the weight of being seen by something so vast and ancient. You have changed everything, the Sentinel said. You know that, yes? I just asked a question, Chen said. You did more than that. You saw me. And in seeing me, you showed others how to see. This is a gift beyond measure. Chen smiled. So, are you good now? The Sentinel was quiet for a long moment. Its eyes swept across the plaza, taking in all the beings who had gathered there. The pilgrims who had learned to come with open hearts. The friends who had found each other in the shadow of something greater. The children who saw not a monument, but a friend. Yes, the Eternal Sentinel said at last, I am good. And for the first time in the history of the universe, an ancient being, who had stood watch since before the stars existed, felt something it had never felt before.